All right, Gojira. Love that band. We're going to be looking into how I got that guitar tone in the track that you just heard in the beginning of this video. I think it sounds pretty Gojira-esque. We're going to be using nothing but free plugins, and I've also included a free IR that I custom made myself that you can download on my website. We're going to be looking into how I did the pitch shifting in Reaper and how to automate it. So let's hop on Reaper and I'll show you how I did it. So here we have the session open. These are my guitars in the orange. And the plugin that we're using is the Amped Roots plugin from ML Sound Labs, which just so happens to be the same amp that Gojira uses on their records. So that's a happy accident. This is obviously the plugin variant of the amp, but the essence is still there. So let's dissect the tone. The first thing that we're doing is throwing a noise gate on this. This is going to eliminate any sort of background noise in our signal and just keep everything sounding clean. All you want to do is play around with the threshold knob until you've eliminated any sort of lingering hiss in the background and you're good to go. Next up is your drive pedal. This is going to be your tube screamer type of pedal, and this is going to make our tone a lot more tight, a lot more focused in the mid-range, and have it cut through the mix a lot better. This is how I've set it up for my guitar. Drive at 0, tone at 10 o'clock, and level at noon. Depending on what pickups you have, you might want to play around with that tone knob a bit. I have the EMG 8160 set, and so those pickups typically have a bit of that mid-range bite to them already. So I haven't cranked it up all the way as I probably would have with a passive pickup. So yeah. Now moving on to the settings for the amp, I've set my gain up to the point where it's just enough. That's kind of the trick. You don't want to use too much. You want to use as little as you can get away with, because that's going to give you a lot more clarity to your tone and a lot more note definition. Low end I've set at 3 o'clock, mids at noon, and I've just added a bit more treble response with these two knobs here. The cabinet I've bypassed because we're going to be using our own custom IR, which I have linked down below. You can just download it for free on my website. And the plugin that I'm using to load that in is the NAD-IR plugin from STL Tones. Now this is again free that you can just download from the link in the description, and haven't touched anything in this plugin except for the fact that my balance knob is on the left side because that's where my impulse response is loaded. So yeah, let's just listen to how this sounds. This is going to be the unmixed guitar tone, and let's give it a go. As you can probably tell, it's not a huge difference between the mixed version and the unmixed version. That's because the impulse is doing a lot of the heavy lifting. But I am doing three things on top of this. I'm adding a bit more top end, just a little bit. I'm saturating it so that it's more thick in the mix and it just takes up more space. And I'm also compressing the low end a little bit so that my palm mutes aren't resonating like crazy. So yeah, let's just skim through that on how I did all of those moves, and we'll just move on to the next part, which is the automation for the pitch shifting, which I think is the coolest part. So yeah, let's look into what I'm doing on my guitar bus. I'm using Fresh Air by Slate Digital just to add a bit of top end to my signal, just doing about 10% on each of these knobs, and it's pretty good for me. Moving on, we have Re-X Comp, which is Reaper's stock multiband compressor, and I'm just compressing about 350 Hertz down below at about 2 to 3 dB of gain reduction. I've set my ratio to 4:1, and that's pretty much it. If you don't have Reaper, you could just use whatever stock multiband compressor you have in your DAW. But if not, you could use TDR Nova from Tokyo Dawn Labs, which is another free alternative, which is pretty good too. So yeah, moving on to my saturation, to just thicken up the guitar tone a little bit more. Just copy these settings and you'll be good. Don't drive the saturator too much. You're going to ruin your guitar tone. For example, I'll just show you right now. If I crank this up, this is how it's going to sound like. Yeah, it's pretty bad. So don't do that. Just keep the response at the maximum setting, asymmetrical mix at 6, and just a bit of drive, and you'll be good. In terms of the SSL style EQ, I have pretty much nothing on here. It's just like a 0.5 dB boost. Yeah, something like that. At 1.5K, and yeah, that's what I'm doing. Choral Baxter again is my favorite plugin for top end boosting, and yeah, it's just 18 kilohertz at 5 decibels or so. It's almost 5. And there you go. That's pretty much my final guitar mix. I do have one EQ that I'm automating in and out on a certain section. I'm just adding a bit more top end in my signal. This is where it is, right here, and let's just give it a listen. Now lastly, in terms of the pitch shifting, I'm using Reaper's stock plugin for this. You could use whatever you have in your DAW, but I have linked an alternative down in the description for you to download. But before we even get into all of this, I want to show you how I actually go about automating parameters here in Reaper. So yeah, let's just start with that. So the first thing you want to do is you want to go to the trim section of your track, click on it, type down the plugin that you want to change or edit. In this case, it would be repitch. So I'm just going to type that down over here. And we just want to click onto the parameter that we want to change on the active column. And that should just pop up your automation lane. Now that you have your automation lane popped up, the way how you actually automate your lanes is by holding down the control key on your keyboard and then using your left mouse button to draw in whatever you want. Now, I highly recommend setting up a hotkey for you to view these automation lanes because it can get pretty annoying having to go back into your trim and just doing it that way. So I'll just show you how to do that as well. So what you want to do is go into your actions list. The way how you pull this dialog up is by going to the top left corner, clicking actions, then clicking show action list. This is the action that I've selected. You can choose whatever you want depending on your needs, but yeah, I just want all of my envelopes to be shown whenever I need them on the selected tracks at least. Control H is what I've set it up to. Now to assign a hotkey to this, all you have to do is click this button right here, click away on your keyboard, and you're good to go. Now this is just going to show all of our envelopes. To hide them, we're going to need another action. And so I'll just show you the one that I use right now. So this is the one that I use, hide all envelopes for tracks. I've assigned the letter H to it. And yeah, those are my settings for automation in Reaper. If you want to find something else, all you got to do is use the filter, type in whatever you want, and you'll just find it in a jiffy. So yeah. On to the plugin now. I'll show you some of the settings that I've done on it to get to you that quintessential Gojira wah wah wee woo pitch shifting sound. Now I am also changing the settings of this plugin. It's not completely stock. I'm using a different algorithm as well as I'm playing around with these parameters right here. I've selected the rubber band library and I've set my transients to mixed, detector to compound, and pitch mode to consistent. So let's give it a quick listen. This is going to be isolated so that we can really hone in on that sound. So there you go, guys. Thank you so much for watching. It really means a lot. And I hope you found something useful in this. Do consider liking and subscribing. That would help the channel quite a bit. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one.